What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Ogre and I'm going to be doing my review for the 2019 movie Dark Phoenix. So, this movie tells the origin story of Jean Grey's transformation into the Phoenix, which happens when she's exposed to some cosmic radiation when she's in space, and it enhances her psychic abilities to the point where she can't control them. And it opens up some repressed trauma that leads her to have even more problems controlling her emotions and her powers, and she becomes unstable and a threat to all the other X-Men and possibly the world. And so it's up to Professor X and Magneto and the other X-Men to try to stop her. This movie is alright. It's one of those, it's kind of a mixed bag. Some people love it, some people hate it, and a lot of people just thought it was mediocre. I've seen more hate in the mediocre talk about this movie than I have loved, but I have seen a couple people that said they loved it as well. Not very many though. I personally, when I saw it for the first time, I really enjoyed it quite a bit. Rewatching it this time, I kind of felt about the same. I don't think it's super great, but I do think it is enjoyable. There are some really fun moments in this movie. The cast are all once again really good, especially Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. She just is absolutely perfect in the role. I personally like her way more than I did Famke Johnson or Jensen, whatever her name was, from the original trilogy. I think that Sophie Turner is way better, but she's really good, and most of the rest of the cast are pretty good too. The main one that isn't that great in here is Jennifer Lawrence. She just, you could tell she didn't want to be here. She was so over the X-Men franchise by the time this movie came out, but I think she was okay. For not wanting to be here, she did the best and stuff that she had to work with, I guess. Michael Fassbender is once again excellent as Magneto, and he steals the show once again. He doesn't have near as much screen time in this one. He kind of comes in here during the second act, and he's in there pretty much throughout then, and he's wanting to get revenge on Jean for killing Mystique and all that, and there's this really awesome scene with him on the train. The entire train sequence is awesome with all the other characters too, but he has a particular scene towards the end that's just really awesome. I've always loved that scene. It's just Magneto being a badass. I've always loved that. And James McAvoy is once again really good as Professor X, and I don't think it's his best performance as a character, but I do say that it was definitely better than his previous performance in X-Men Apocalypse. He seemed to be a little bit more into the movie in this one, but the quality isn't as strong in this one as it was in First Class or Days of Future Past, like the movie quality itself. So he doesn't have as much to work with like he did in those movies, but he still does a really good job and everything. My main problem with Professor X in this movie is more of how he's written. Like, he kind of has become this cocky hot-headed jerk, which is just totally out of character for Charles Xavier. But you take that aside, I still think James McAvoy is good, and the rest of the cast are good too, and everything. That Ty Sheridan returned as Cyclops, and Alexandra Shipp once again played Storm. Neither one of them really have much to do in here, but they're both pretty good. And Cody Smith-McPhee is once again in here as Nightcrawler, and all three of them are pretty good and stuff, but they don't really do a lot. Really, the main thing Cyclops really does is he drops an F-bomb at the end of it, and he's kind of there trying to keep Jean alive because she's his girlfriend. That's really all that that he's there for. But yeah, so the cast are all pretty good. The score in here is done by Hans Zimmer. That explains why the score sounded so good. I never realized he did the music for this movie. I didn't really remember how good the score was. Like even though it's good, it's kind of forgettable. But maybe it's just because this is not one of the most memorable X-Men movies, and I've only seen it once when it first came out in theaters. So this was my first time rewatching it in almost 3 years since it came out. But I think that Dark Phoenix is a good movie. Is it the best movie ever? Definitely not. And it's definitely not even one of the best in the franchise, but it definitely isn't the worst like some people like to claim it is. Some people say this one and New Mutants are the worst movies, and I think that's just because they're ready for the MCU versions of these characters, because those movies, this one and New Mutants, are both neither one near as bad as everyone says. Really, X-Men Apocalypse too, but because Apocalypse came out right at that time when people were getting really, really picky on their movies, and they have to be part of the MCU or a superhero movie can't be good and stuff like that. And it's the way the comic book movie fans seem to work nowadays. You're either strictly DC or Marvel. There are some that are like me that are in between that love both, but it seems like a lot of people mostly lean towards the MCU. All the other superhero franchises are just whack to them and everything because they don't always have the same quality. Sometimes they do. This one definitely isn't one of those. So, but this one is definitely better than some of the other worst superhero movies out there. There's even movies in the MCU that this movie is better than, like Eternals and The Incredible Hulk. So, I really enjoy Dark Phoenix. I don't think it's a super great movie. It's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's a fun time. It has some pretty good cinematography and stuff when they're outside and stuff, and some cool action scenes, but it also has a lot of really terrible CGI, which was another one of my big problems with X-Men Apocalypse. Is the CGI in this movie is just really horrible to look at and everything. And it's probably the worst that it's been in the entire X-Men franchise in this particular movie, except for maybe X-Men Origins Wolverine. But aside from that, I really enjoy Dark Phoenix. I think it's a fun movie. It's not a great movie. It's not one of those that I want to go to as an X-Men fan and watch just because I'm in the mood for an X-Men movie. I wouldn't want to go for that. But if I'm going to watch all of the X-Men movies, this one's definitely worth watching in an X-Men marathon, and it's worth watching every now and then. It's just not a super great movie. It's a fun movie, but it's not a super great one. So I'd say I'd give it a 7 out of 10, and that's a little more than it deserves, really. I should give it a 6, but I do really enjoy some of the action scenes in there, especially that train scene at the end. I will say that the main villain of the movie, because for some reason they had to have another villain, Dark Phoenix, the Phoenix wasn't enough for the story. They had some other girl villain that's played by Jessica Chastain, who is completely wasted in the movie. I almost forgot to mention her because I always forget she's even in the movie. Like, I literally just watched this movie and just remembered that she was in it. That's why I didn't talk about her much. But yeah, she's I don't blame her. It's just the way the character was written. There's nothing to her. She has no backstory, nothing. She just is this person that became possessed by these alien creature thingies that want to get Jean's powers. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It's generic. It's nothing special. And Jessica Chastain did the best she could, but her character is just very forgettable and a terrible villain. One of the worst X-Men movie villains for sure. So, anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of Dark Phoenix. And I've got one more X-Men movie next week, and I'm going to be doing my ranking of the X-Men franchise. I might release both videos on the same day. I'm not sure yet. But I thought I'd at least do this and everything, because I've been doing these X-Men movies for a while, and I might just do my ranking the week after next and everything instead of having 2 videos on 1 week. I might just do that. However I do it, I just want to say this has been a really fun ride, and it's sad that this is kind of the end of the original X-Men characters, because New Mutants doesn't really have any of those characters. I kind of wish that they would have done a better, satisfying ending to the X-Men franchise. I'm hoping maybe with the way the MCU is bringing in the multiverse, maybe somehow they'll be able to do that. But I doubt it. Who knows? But all in all, I think Dark Phoenix is a really fun movie. I wouldn't say a really great movie, but it's a fun movie. Nothing special, but it's okay for what it is. It's a decent little 2-hour movie, or a little bit under 2-hour movie, because it's not quite 2 hours. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of Dark Phoenix, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.